Alex here with a high conflict child custody video on child not picked up. This video is covering the scenario where the other parent just doesn't come to get the child. It happens a lot and it drives some parents crazy. A lot of people have the other problem, which is the other parent just doesn't let them have the child. So the child is withheld. I have a separate video on that. I'm not going to go into that in this video. You can watch that video if you're curious about what I think some of the solutions are to solve that problem. For this video, it's even tougher to solve because in the sense of the other parent not coming to get the child, some judges don't feel that you really are suffering, even though in reality many times you are, because you have to figure out how to deal with the problem. Now you have a child in your custody that you didn't think you were going to have, and if you have to go to work or do something important that you can't take the child to, you have to suddenly and spontaneously figure out how to deal with that. And in some cases, there are parents who have to drive to like a police station or like a third-party location like a shopping mall or something to exchange a child. In those cases, there's wasted gas and time and a lot more frustration. There is no specific statute in Nevada, and I'm sure this is probably the same for all the other 50 states, on what a parent can do when this happens. So what ends up happening is all of the judges in the state, at least in Nevada, have completely and wildly different opinions on how to deal with this problem. Some judges will think, oh, it's fine for you to just withhold a child. Other parent didn't show up, too bad for them, they forfeit their time. Other judges will get mad at you, and that will backfire on you. Other judges have ruled against the parent who is there on time and basically chastise them for not working with the other parent, sticking around for an extra half hour or an hour, or taking the child to them, or working out some kind of substitute visitation. Other judges have that opinion. And so it makes it extremely difficult to do a video and tell people exactly what works. You end up having to play it as safe as you possibly can just to be sure that you aren't the one getting in trouble for trying to hold the other parent accountable. So there are a few small things that I'll go into first. Obvious things. For example, if you're in a situation where you have to take your child to the other parent's house to drop them off, the solution there would be to ask the court to change the order so that the other parent, or whichever parent is going to get the child, has to be the one to go and actually get the child. They have to expend the gas money and the time to travel and all that. Because at least if you can set that kind of order up, you won't have wasted gas and time. You'll still be at home and you'll probably be frustrated because you may have other things to do. But at the very least, if the other person shows up late, you're still able to do things in your home if you are able to be home. There can still be problems with this if you have to like go to work or something, because now you'll suddenly have to get some kind of childcare or you may miss work. But at the very least, one potential part of the problem is solved. For parents who have to go to a third location, like a police station or something, you may be able to return to court and ask the court to choose a location that's much closer to you. And judges will be hesitant to do this unless you come to the court with a lot of evidence showing that you have tried everything you can to work around the other parent's issues with regards to not showing up on time. And you can show the court that you're not being vindictive, that you are a solution-oriented parent, and that you're only there as a last resort because you've tried everything you can and they just won't stop. If you can show the court that you have, they will probably move the location much closer to you so that if the other parent doesn't show up, you can just drive a very short distance back home. And of course, they'll have to drive a whole lot more and waste a whole lot more time getting to that location and gas money, but it's their fault. They kind of, the court will punish them in that way. I mean, it's not really meant to be a punishment. It's just a fair way to solve a problem by solving the problem in the way that's least detrimental to the cooperative parent who's solution-oriented and the most detrimental to the parent who just doesn't care and just doesn't show up on time. With respect to contempt of court versus modifying custody versus changing the timeshare, that's just yet another area where different judges have different opinions and will use different tools at their disposal. Most judges will just try to modify the timeshare. Some judges will use contempt of court, and a very teeny tiny few judges will modify child custody. Usually that's not going to happen unless the parent is not taking the child to school or something like that. But sometimes even in those cases, the court will work around that. Sometimes when a parent doesn't take a child to school, the court will say, well, we're going to just change the timeshare so that they can have Friday, Saturday, and Sunday every week. That way they still have joint custody, but now they only have one school day. So the child will only be late one day a week. Some judges think that's okay. Other judges will say that's it. You're done. You're not getting any more joint physical custody. You're going to be dropped down to a non-custodial parent. You'll see the child every other weekend. Problem solved. No longer missing school. And then some judges, like I mentioned, will hold the other parent in contempt of court, order them imprisoned, fine them, stuff like that. It's hard to know exactly what a judge is going to want to do. So as I mentioned earlier, the best thing that you can do is to play it safe, take it the safest, propose the safest solution, since you don't know what kind of judge you have or what they think is reasonable in the sense of a parent not coming to pick up their child, and basically work your way forward from there. In my case, that's what I did. I didn't ask the court to modify custody. I didn't ask the court to throw my ex in jail. I asked the court in my case to enter an order that if I was at an exchange for at least 10 minutes and my ex didn't show up, I could just leave and she'd forfeit her time. She was late all the time until that order was entered. The second that order was entered, she only missed one single exchange. It's crazy how a court order will magically solve a problem once there's actually some kind of trigger for not showing up on time. Some parents have to deal with or language in their orders that specifically state that they have to work out some kind of makeup exchange if the parent doesn't show up on time. In those cases, if it's a high conflict ex, they will just not show up on purpose and say they fell asleep or something. It happens. It does. And then they'll say, they won't even apologize. They'll contact you like 5 or 6 hours later and they'll say, I want to see the child tomorrow at 9. They won't even mention, oops, I'm sorry I missed the exchange. I hope you weren't waiting around. Now they'll just send an email saying, better show up tomorrow at this time. I want the child. In those situations, I recommend people ask the court to strike that provision from the order. And even, if possible, even enter the language that specifically states that they forfeit their time. I mentioned solving the problem by flipping around how the pickups and drop-offs happen. Make it so that the person picking up the child is the person that has to do all the driving and all the legwork, so that way the other person doesn't lose out on any time and money. When it comes to jobs, I have to mention that in this video. If the other parent isn't picking up the child because they have a new job and it's difficult for them, most likely the court won't punish them and will just try to work around their new job schedule. So when it comes to something like that, just anticipate that you're not going to make any leeway in court and just work something out with the other parent. Change the timeshare if that's what you have to do. If you're really gung-ho on trying to hold the other parent in contempt of court or get primary physical custody based on their non-appearance at exchanges, you are going to want to focus just as much on communications as on the fact that they didn't show. It's not going to be enough to show that they didn't show. You're going to want to bring up points like they're not sending text messages to tell you when they're late. They're not apologizing. They're not asking for visitation and working around your schedule when they don't show up. They are making demands and insisting on exercising their rights in a way that's as obnoxious as they possibly can. I've seen some, oh my God, I've seen some cases where they will specifically choose makeup times that the other parents at work, it's like they were late, they missed their exchange, and they demand a makeup time when they know you're at work. And it's, in these situations, you can probably get some kind of punitive measure in place. You can probably get some kind of contempt of court order or even a modification of custody, because you can show not only are they late, but they're making these insane demands. And especially if you've sent them emails and text messages that show you talking to them from the perspective not of how dare you not show up, what's wrong with you, but rather in the future, if you're not going to show up, send me a text or something so that I don't waste my gas money, so I can contact a sitter, so I can tell my work I'm going to be late. Because that way, when they don't do that, you can mention to the court, this isn't just a problem of them not showing up. They're deliberately trying to create conflict. here's messages from me saying, please let me know when you're going to be late. Please, contact me so I can set up a sitter. And they're still refusing to do that. Those little details are the things that will really get a judge to see the problem. A lot of parents don't do that. And then they just go to court and tell the court that the other parent is annoying them or harassing them on purpose, but without any kind of text evidence or email or something to back them up. The court just has no idea who's telling the truth, and they just assume they're two bickering parents. And the court will just try to solve the timeshare problem in the way that's least disruptive to both sides, and it can often feel very unfair to the parent who is showing up on time, to the parent who is waiting around for the child to get picked up. It happens a lot where, I'll give you an example. One parent just keeps sleeping in, and they keep forgetting to pick the child up. The other parent goes to court, tries to have him held in contempt or modify custody, and the judge says, oh, you're waking up late? So why don't we just move the time 3 hours forward and give him some extra makeup time over here? That way he or she, because it's both sides that do this, that way he or she will wake up on time because now they can do the exchange at noon instead of 9, and they'll get an extra 3 hours at the end of the day. I've seen tons of parents send me messages saying how angry they were, that they were on time, they were keeping notes, they went to court trying to punish the other parent for disobeying the order, and the judge just said, okay, well, what I'm going to do is, in their eyes, reward you. I'm going to reward you for not showing up on time by making it easier for you to show up on time. That's really not how the court sees it. The court sees it as being solution-oriented, wanting to solve a problem in a way that doesn't hurt either side, but it really comes off very negative to the parent who is doing everything they're supposed to do. To that parent, it looks like the bad parent is being rewarded for their malfeasance. So, as I mentioned, if you expect to come out on top in a situation like this or in a dispute like this, you want to make sure that you are sending those types of communications to the other parent, because those are the communications are going to underline that this isn't a problem of a parent who just can't wake up on time. This is a problem of a parent who is deliberately and obnoxiously trying to inconvenience your life as much as possible. This doesn't happen in low conflict child custody cases. Those parents have issues and they work around them. Sometimes they're late, there's traffic, they're having a bad day. Those parents work around their issues. High conflict parents have serious mental health issues, personality disorder issues, emotional immaturity, and they very carefully design their actions in a way that is going to inflict as much chaos into your life as possible. So they will do really nutty things like for example, the one example I mentioned earlier, knowing that in their court order it says if they miss an exchange they can just get the child at another time, purposefully missing an exchange, coming up with some bogus reason, and then making it as difficult as possible for you to drop the child off to them next time. I'm not sure what else I can mention in this video. I feel like this is going to be one of those videos where I'm going to get a lot of comments and I'm going to try to help people on a case-by-case basis, trying to answer their questions. So at this point, definitely post something in the comments below if you're frustrated with your situation, your ex isn't coming to pick up the child. And if you have any questions, again, post that in the comments as well. I think at this point I'm going to end this video. I hope that I answer this question. I know that it's not a clear-cut, straightforward answer. I know that it's one of the most murkiest videos that I've ever done because the law is so murky in this area. In fact, I mentioned that this is one of the things that causes incompetence, bias, and all kinds of other nonsense to come out from the court, because there's no specific statute or law that says here's what you're supposed to do when this happens, when a parent doesn't show up. There's no law, and so because there's no law, the courts have discretion, a lot of discretion on how they deal with this problem, and so nobody really has any idea what to expect when they go to court with this kind of problem. I already mentioned this earlier in the video, but I have seen some parents who just said you can't have the child now because you didn't show up, and the judge was like, good job. Other parents who did the same exact thing and they lost custody. Not even exaggerating. I've seen the same exact situation handled in the most stark different way from the judges, just because there's no law saying what's supposed to happen. So it's just each judge's opinion. So yeah, at this point, I'm going to go ahead and end this video, and I'll see you guys next time.